Today I'm going to be ranking every single Pokemon ability from Gen 3, mostly in the context of competitive singles. And I had to make my own tier list to be able to do so. And when I'm evaluating these abilities, I'm going to take into account the Pokemon that have access to them and how important the ability is for that Pokemon. Maybe the Pokemon is only good because of its ability, or it's a huge part of why it's good. Or sometimes the ability makes no difference, sometimes it's alright, it's an advantage, but it's not hugely relevant. There's context you got to consider. And I've already listed some on the list here. Abilities that are pretty much useless. Sturdy technically has a use, but in competitive singles, one-hit KO moves are banned, so in Gen 3 Sturdy actually doesn't really do anything in competitive. Minus and plus in doubles have their effect, but no one's using Plusle and Minun in any competitive doubles format either. Stench does nothing in Gen 3. And Truant is actively detrimental, isn't it? We're going to start off with Airlock, which is Rayquaza's ability. I'm going to chuck that in the excellent tier. I think Rayquaza's ability is really nice because in Gen 3 Ubers, weather is a big part of the metagame. Kyogre and Groudon are central Pokemon, and being able to remove advantageous weather effects such as Swift Swim is really useful. Rayquaza can come in against, for example, Ludicolo, remove the rain effects completely and threaten to one-hit KO it, outrun it now that it no longer has Swift Swim. It comes up quite a bit. Rayquaza would be good without it, of course, but the extra utility you get out of it is really worth it. It's part of the reason why you use Rayquaza. Cute Charm, I mean, I don't think Cute Charm is particularly relevant. It's unlike Clefable, not a common Pokemon really. The effect doesn't come up very much. Chance of Infatuation on hit, I believe. It's not very good. Damp I'm going to put in the OK tier. Poliwrath can use it sometimes. It can allow free turns, preventing the enemy from using Explosion. Damp provides an immunity to Explosion. It's not like when you explode against a Ghost type, where the Explode user actually faints in that situation. If you use Explode against a Damp Pokemon, the move just fails and you remain alive, so it's not as good as the Ghost type immunity to Explosion, but on a Pokemon like Poliwrath, it's nice to be a Water type immune to Explosion in Gen 3 OU because you resist Metagross Meteor Mash and they can't explode on you. Exploding is how Metagross often deals with bulky Water types, or Water types in general. Damp is not bad. Drizzle is obviously amazing. Central ability in Gen 3 Ubers. Enables things like 100% accurate Thunder, which is kind of the best move in Gen 3 Ubers, and of course Swift Swim win conditions like Kabutops and Ludicolo, which are really powerful in the Gen 3 Ubers meta. Also disrupts enemy Sun, powers up Kyogre itself with powerful water type damage. It's one of the best abilities in the game, of course. As is Drought for similar reasons. Drought is Groudon's ability, and Drought has the beautiful effect of making rain worse, mostly. You nerf Thunder to 50 accuracy. That's one of the most significant things about it, because Thunder spam can really destroy you. Even if you resist Thunder, the 30% para chance can destroy you in Gen 3 U. So Drought not only helps you out in that regard, it also buff teammates like Fire types, Ho-Oh. Help water weak Pokemon by providing a bit of water resistance. And it can sometimes even enable Pokemon like Exeggutor with Chlorophyll, which are decent in Gen 3 U. Early Bird, I'm going to put in OK. You sometimes see Early Bird on Houndoom. Flash Fire is the more common ability choice on Houndoom, obviously to help out against like Moltres and Charizard, but sometimes Early Bird is nice. Early Bird's effect is you sleep for half as many turns as usual. Can be useful to take a Spore on Houndoom and then wake up easily. Flash Fire is more useful, I think. Most games, the fire immunity is really nice. Effect Spore, I almost want to put in not relevant. It's the ability on Breloom. It very rarely comes up. It's not really anything to do with why Breloom is good, but it is literally better than nothing. But the amount of times that I can think of Effect Spore making a difference in a competitive game are pretty slim. It's a 10% chance on contact to deal a status effect to the enemy. It's alright. Maybe you put it in OK, but I think it's worse than these. It's almost like in between these two. But I think I'll chuck it in not relevant. Flame Body is actually an amazing ability, but I'm going to put it in not relevant because I think the only Pokemon that gets it is like Magmar and Magmar, who are just simply not great, unfortunately. I think like Pokology has used Magmar before, which is funny, and Flame Body did stuff. That's hilarious, but I don't know if I could put it in OK because the ability is outstanding, but the Pokemon that have it are not good. Maybe that deserves an OK rank. But if Magmar has any niche whatsoever, it's like Flame Body is the reason it does. It probably doesn't. Don't use Magmar, folks, please. Don't do it. Flash Fire, I'm going to put in great. Provides a fire immunity and of course boosts up fire type attacks upon being hit by fire type attacks. Houndoom uses this to great effect. It's one of the best qualities of Houndoom is Flash Fire. Arcanine can also use it. I think Arcanine more often uses Intimidate, but Flash Fire is another valid option. Any ability that provides an immunity is going to be good, and it's a useful one to have. Houndoom has like good roll compression for that reason. It helps out versus Gengar with Pursuit, offensive psychic types like Celebi and Jirachi with its dark typing, and enemy fire types with Flash Fire. Don't think Houndoom would be as good as it is without Flash Fire. That's a great ability. Forecast is not, I won't say useless, I guess, but it's not relevant. Guts is great. I think Heracross would not be the Pokemon it is if it didn't have Guts. Guts, if you don't know, is you get an attack boost if you're statist, and Burn does not nerf your physical attacks if you have Guts, which is a great effect in Gen 3 where Will-O-Wisp on Gengar is so common, and it's a common way to cripple physical attackers. Pokemon like Heracross, Hariyama, and Machamp don't have to worry about that, and that makes them so much more scary. You know, a common way in Gen 3 to cripple things and break through them is not only Will-O-Wisp, but Toxic and Thunder Wave, but Thunder Waving a Heracross is one of the scariest things of all time. You're going to boost up their Mega Horns and their Brick Breaks. Heracross does, of course, use Swarm as well, and Swarm is a valid choice, but on many Heracross sets, Guts is the best way to go. Same with Hariyama. Hariyama's also quite bulky, and it matches up well against Gengar because of Guts. Guts is a great ability. I'll put it even above Flash Fire. Arena Trap is going to go in the amazing tier. It's the sole reason that Dugtrio is viable, and obviously the concept of trapping is very powerful, and it's banned in most generations, not banned in Gen 3 because there's, you know, sufficient counterplay to it. You can out-momentum it, punish Dugtrio's choice locks. There aren't items like Focus Sash in the game yet, so Dugtrio has to lock into something, and the meta centers around spikes, so that skews towards Pokemon who are immune to Arena Trap, which gives you a lot of opportunities to punish Dugtrio's lock into Earthquake. Porygon 2 exists to counter trap Dugtrio. Despite all that though, I mean, there's nothing in the game that's as reliable at like eliminating key targets as Arena Trap. And in the hands of a skilled player, you can get so much out of Dugtrio. I think it's a top tier Pokemon, and the ability is really good. It's one of the things that makes Gen 3 unique too, because it's not an ability that is legal in most generations. Huge Power, I'm going to put in Excellent. Wait, this is the one that Azumarill has though. So Azumarill is not really, I think Pure Power is the one that, I know they're literally the same exact ability, but Huge Power is on Azumarill, who is not a Pokemon. Pure Power is on Medi, who is a great Pokemon. So I think even though they're the exact same thing, I think you got to factor in the Pokemon that has access to them. I'm going to put OK for Huge Power, because it's the one thing that gives Azumarill any niche, and I think people have experimented with Azumarill, but it's not very good. Obviously, it's a mono water type. It doesn't have like good physical stab. You can run sub-pudge sets, but it's a bit slow, outclassed by most other physical attackers, obviously. But I think I'll rank Pure Power in Excellent. Medicam is a great Pokemon in Gen 3 OU. Pure Power allows it to achieve breaking power that nothing else in the format can. It's pretty fast, considering how much attack it can achieve. It's one of those Pokemon that can threaten absolutely anything, which is really valuable. And Pure Power is the whole reason it's viable as well. Hustle, I'm going to chuck in a borderline useless, but I'll put not relevant. I think the only Pokemon that gets Hustle in Gen 3 is like Delibird, who is just not a Pokemon. Just not very relevant. Hyper Cutter? Who gets Hyper Cutter? Gligar and Pinsir. I mean, it's a decent ability. It prevents attack drops. I don't believe it's like Clear Body prevents all stat drops at all. Hyper Cutter prevents only attack drops. I guess I'll put it in not relevant. Pinsir and Gligar are not really very common. Immunity, I'm going to put in Great. Provides an immunity to Poison. Poison is a very popular mechanic. It's one of the few abilities that provides a straight up status immunity. It's part of why Snorlax is so good is because it has that toxic immunity. Helps it against, you know, Skarmory, Swampert, etc. Common toxic users. Melodic, I think it's a great ability. It's obviously very good. Inner Focus. Inner Focus I can put in OK. Inner Focus is kind of a messed up ability because it provides an immunity to Flinch. But most of the Pokemon that get it are weak to Rock. Like Dragonite is weak to Rock, so you can be immune to Rock Slide Flinch, but it probably just kills you. So what's the point? Glalie has it, and yet here we are. But the thing about it is that you can EV both Dragonite and Glalie to live a Rock Slide, and being completely immune to that flinch is actually a big deal. Like, you can run more defensive Glalie sets and spike up against Tyranitar. Dragonite can EV to live Rock Slide and, like, Agility afterwards. It's not very good, though, obviously. Like, in flinch immunity on a Pokemon weak to Rock, when Rock Slide is the main flinch move in the game, it's not going to come up that often, but it's, like, better than nothing, I suppose. Insomnia, I'll put in the solid tier. Most relevant Pokemon I think that has Insomnia is Banette. There's also Hypno, Hypno's okay. I think Hypno has some merit as like a Carmine passer. It used to be one of the big things on Baton Pass chains was Hypno with Taunt BP and like substitute Carmines. Banette is also an okay ghost type on aggressive teams because it is the only ghost type that can really threaten Pursuit Tyranitar. It has high attack and it can run HP fighting. And it has good utility moves like Will-O-Wisp and Taunt and stuff. One of the few things that can also take advantage of Ghost Stab with Shadow Ball. I really like Banette, I think it's awesome. And Insomnia is another useful quality. It can come in against Breloom safely. Immune to both Spore and Fighting type attacks, which is really nice. Breloom is often paired with Tyranitar, Pursuit Tyranitar, and Banette's not scared of Pursuit Tyranitar because it can directly threaten it. Plays a part in why Banette has any niche, I think. Intimidate in the amazing tier. I think Intimidate is amazing. Salamence and Gyarados have it, and it's one of their best qualities. The ability to nerf a Pokemon's attack on switch in is so powerful. It's like it often saves you from enemy win conditions. It's a way to you can like Intim loop, stop like a cursed up Pokemon or Dragon Danced up Pokemon. Intimidate can not only save your life, it gives you safe entry points, which is really important on a Pokemon like Salamence that can either win games with Dragon Dance if it gets free turns, or directly pose a threat with mixed sets. So you can come in against, Heracross, intimidate them, and then take their fighting type attack. Or even if they rock slide you, you're not taking that much because you just intimidated them. And then you're immediately recovering momentum. I mean, part of the reason Salamence is so great is because of Intimidate. Would not be as good without it. And same with Gyarados. Gyarados having Intimidate is a huge deal. Intimidate's an amazing ability. Keen Eye, I'm going to say is okay. The only real use for it is to stop Sand Attack, which is like a cheese strategy that Ninjask gamers sometimes use. They try to Sand Attack you to lower your accuracy and fish for misses so that they can substitute pass to a threat, and hopefully you miss either an attack trying to break their substitute or Roar. They can make you miss Roar so that you fail to force them out. Kind of an annoying gimmick strategy, but Keen Eye helps against that. Skarmory has Keen Eye. So it does literally do something. That doesn't come up that often, and you can honestly often handle those teams without it. Levitate is of course in the S tier. Levitate not only provides an immunity to ground type attacks, it also provides an immunity to Dugtree's Arena Trap effect, allowing you to switch out, otherwise you would be completely trapped. And it provides an immunity to spikes, which are one of the most central mechanics in all of Gen 3. They're one of the main forms of offensive pressure and progress making, and you can be completely immune to them. Gengar would absolutely be significantly worse if it didn't have Levitate, so would a lot of Pokemon. Claydol, Flygon, Lunatone even. If Lunatone didn't have Levitate, it would be nothing. Lunatone is barely anything, but without Levitate, what would it be? It would be for the birds, as they say. Lightning Rod. Who gets Lightning Rod in Gen 3? Looks like ground types get it. It's maybe relevant in doubles. Manectric gets it. I guess you could say it's relevant, but I'm going to put it in not relevant anyway. I think it's barely relevant. Maybe I should make a new tier in between these, but that's alright. Up next is Battle Armor. Is this the one that Armaldo gets? Yes. Battle Armor gives Armaldo a decent niche by allowing it to 1v1 Snorlax, because Armaldo resists normal type attacks and it can boost defense with Harden, or you can Mimic and take their Curse and boost up too. And because they can't crit you, you have a crit immunity from Battle Armor. They can't 1v1 you, but you can 1v1 them. You can knock off their leftovers and just seismic toss them down, and they can't really break through you. Often a way that you break through enemy defensive boosts is by fishing for a crit over a long period of turns, because crits ignore defensive boosts. But because Armaldo has immunity to crits, it helps against specifically Cursed Snorlax. That's one of Armaldo's best traits, is that it matches up well into Snorlax. Limber is an immunity to paralysis, but who gets it is the question. Who gets Limber? Hitmonlee and Persian. I have seen Hitmonlee before, but it's like, I don't think it's very good. It can switch in. I'm going to put it in okay, I guess. It's okay. I guess if there was ever a reason to use Hitmonlee, it would be because it's immune to paralysis. You could switch it against Thunder Wave. That might come up sometimes. I feel like I've seen it before. I don't remember where. Liquid Ooze, I believe that is Tentacruel. Tentacruel, not a great Pokemon in Gen 3. Unfortunate to be a bulky water type that loses to Dugtrio. It's water poison, which in other generations would be a good typing. In Gen 3 it's not, because the vulnerable to Dugtree or Arena Trap. I guess I'll put it in okay, because Tentacruel's like borderline usable. You could maybe make a Tentacruel team work, maybe with Porygon 2 or something. It's a bulky water with fighting resistance, that's something, and it has rapid spin. And Liquid Ooze is actually alright against Celebi Leech Seed. But then, it doesn't help that you are also weak to Psychic, so you can prevent them from getting Leech Seed healing and even damage them if they Leech Seed you, but then you're just weak to Psychic anyway, so it's not exactly that useful. There are sometimes other Leech Seeders like Sceptile and Jumpluff. I suppose in the Jumpluff matchup, Tentacruel excels. Maybe we'll see that in 2033. Magma Armor. That's Camerupt, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to put that in not relevant because that has nothing to do with what you use Camerupt for. It's frail anyway, it dies to a slight breeze. I don't know if there's really many situations where the crit immunity is coming up for Camerupt. Comes up for Armaldo, a bulkier Pokemon that can win specific 1v1s, but Camerupt? Not exactly. I guess it literally helps, like you could get crit by Zapdos HP Ice or something that would 2-hit you, whereas if you didn't have Magma Armor, you'd be open to that. That is okay, but that's a pretty low chance of happening, and it doesn't really fit on Camerupt. I'm going to put it in not relevant. Magnet Pull, I'm going to say is excellent. Magnet Pull is the whole reason that Magneton is viable. Without Magnet Pull, it would not be viable, so it's Pokemon defining. The ability to trap both Skarmory and Forretress is very valuable. They're like some of the highest value, most common Pokemon. Mostly Skarmory, but covering Forretress as well is also very good. You can build entire teams around Magneton's ability to trap and eliminate Skarmory, like physical offense teams or hazard control teams with Claydol, or even Carmine Pass Celebi teams that eliminate Skarmory to try and prevent Roar. Magneton is a metagame staple, and Magnet Pull is an amazing ability. Marvel Scale, I think I'll put in great. It's Melodic's ability, and it boosts defense if Melodic is statused. It's nice because if Melodic gets burned or paralyzed, it's not so bad. Melodic often runs Refresh as well, but sometimes you can break through passive Pokemon like Melodic by Thunder Waving them and spamming Rock Slide to para-flinch them, but because Melodic gains defense when it's Thunder Waved, it is a little bit harder to do that. Makes the Pokemon sturdier, gives it more opportunities to live and put in hits. I think it's a great ability. Natural Cure, I'm going to put in amazing, or would I put it in excellent? Maybe it's not quite as amazing as these other ones. Yeah, maybe it's not quite as amazing as Intimidate, Arena Trap, Levitate. Or is it? What an interesting question that I find myself answering. I think the ability to cure status is really valuable. It's one of the reasons Blissey is so good is because of Natural Cure. I mean, Blissey is good for many reasons, but Natural Cure is one of the biggest ones. The ability to safely come in against status moves and have the assurance that you can heal it upon switching out is very important. It's a cornerstone of many teams to scout enemy status moves and have a form of counterplay against that. I guess I'll put this in the top of excellent. Oblivious, that's an immunity to Infatuation. Doesn't really come up ever, so I'll put it in not relevant. Overgrow, I'm going to put in solid. That's the grass type starters get this. It's if you're below 1/3 HP, your grass type attacks deal 1.5 times more damage. This sometimes comes up on Venusaur and Sceptile, and it's a useful ability. A lot of attacks in Gen 3 tend to be like weaker base power wise, so hitting people into that range is more common. These like pinch abilities that the starters have are pretty relevant in Gen 3, and they come up quite a lot. You got to be careful playing around the attack range to put them in to overgrow damage, or Torrent or Blaze. Yeah, I think it's a solid ability that comes up quite a bit. Speaking of, here's Blaze, which I'll also put here. Blaziken takes advantage of Blaze nicely by it helps it in the lead matchup versus Zapdos. If Zapdos Thunderbolts Blaziken, it puts Blaziken into Blaze range, and then Fire Blast will KO, which is important. I guess for the sake of thematics, let's also rank Torrent, which I'll put. It's weird to rank. I think you do rank Torrent higher than Blaze and Overgrow because Swampet's Torrent comes up a lot, and it's one of the reasons it can beat Tyranitar and Aerodactyl and stuff so consistently, and offensive Swampets can sub down to Torrent range consistently, which is really valuable. It's one of the reasons like Select Swampet works as an endgame cleaner. It's just really common. Swampet is bulkier than any other Blaziken or Venusaur or Charizard Pokemon like that. Charizard does take advantage of Blaze nicely, but the Pokemon that takes advantage of this the most is Swampert with Torrent, I think. Torrent range comes up all the time in Gen 3. Like, most games, honestly. If you're using Swampert, Torrent range will probably come up, to be honest. And it'll probably have some relevant impact on the outcome. It's not the sole reason Swampert's good, but it definitely helps a lot. Own Tempo. What's that one? An immunity to confusion. It's on Slowbro and Smeargle. I think not relevant. Maybe there's like some application because you're going to be immune to Ninjask Swagger with your Smeargle, but when is that ever coming up? I don't think that's ever coming up. I've never seen that interaction in my life. The reason you use Smeargle is for its move pool. It can learn any move in the game. Own Tempo has nothing to do with why you use Smeargle. Poison Point is, I think, Nidoqueen gets that. Nidoqueen, Quillfish, and Nidoking, and Roselia. I'll put it in okay. Roselia can use it to punish contact attacks, so can Nidoqueen. Obviously, neither of those Pokemon are very relevant, but Poison Point definitely helps them. They need help. They need all the help they can get. Poison Point, Nidoqueen's really good in Gen 4. I made a video about that. In Gen 3, Nidoqueen is scared of Dugtrio, so that's a problem, but Nidoqueen's not bad in Gen 3, it's just obviously super niche and not that common. But Poison Point's one of its the better things it has going for it, isn't it? Pressure, I'm gonna put in excellent. Pressure comes up very often. It is an ability that causes your opponent to waste twice as much PP. Think of like Suicune and Zapdos with rest sets. They can often force endgame wins by wasting twice as much PP. Pressure is a great way to play around things like Leech Seed, Hydro Pump, Fire Blast, Giga Drain, moves with low PP. Pressure can punish them greatly. Suicune would probably not be as effective of a late game win condition if it wasn't for Pressure. Rest Zapdos with Pressure comes up all the time. Allows you to 1v1 Pokemon like Blissey or, you know, Celebi that have huge longevity, but you can win in the end game because of Pressure. A very late game focused ability, but it is very important. It's why certain Pokemon are as good as they are. Rain Dish is an interesting one because let's put it at the top of okay, because Ludicolo can use Rain Dish. It more commonly uses Swift Swim is by far the more common option on Ludicolo, but you can use Rain Dish on some teams like bulkier weather clear teams. And Ludicolo is nice because it is one of the safer switch-ins in the game against Metagross, because you resist both steel and ground, so you can come in on Metagross, Meteor Mash, or Earthquake. And then with Rain Dish, you can clear weather and become really bulky and spread like Leech Seed and just be a little menace. So this is a usable ability. Often Swift Swim is the preferred choice on Ludicolo for weather clearing and just posing a threat with the double speed, but Rain Dish is also usable, and I'll put it at the top of okay because it probably is more relevant than most of these. Rock Head I'm going to put in great, purely because it allows Aerodactyl to have no recoil on Double Edge, and Double Edge is one of Aerodactyl's most important moves. The huge 120 base power normal type attack, it actually outdamages Aerodactyl's own hidden power stab, which is important. It's just the strongest neutral attack Aerodactyl has, and it allows it to hit switch-ins like Swampert, who resists rock, but Double Edge smacks it for big neutral damage, Flygon, and often Double Edge is the thing you click to clear in the game because it is 100% accurate unlike Rock Slide, and it just hits more things neutrally, so locking into it can be better in endgames. Aerodactyl benefits greatly from Rock Head, and I'll put it in the great tier. Rough Skin, I'm going to say not relevant, because the only Pokemon that... Rough Skin becomes a great ability later on in the franchise, but in Gen 3, take a look at what gets Rough Skin. You got such great options as Carvanha and Sharpedo. Sharpedo, not a bulky Pokemon, yet it has a bulky focused ability. Yeah, Rough Skin has basically no relevance, I think. Maybe in UU. I'm not as knowledgeable about UU and below, folks, so maybe some of these abilities do come up in those lower tiers. I wouldn't really know. Focused mostly on OU, and I have played Ubers too. So Runaway is useless, I forgot that one. Chlorophyll we'll put in solid. Chlorophyll is the whole reason that Exeggutor and Shiftry are usable, is because of Chlorophyll. Exeggutor is decent, it has Sleep Powder, Explosion, Thief, Wish, moves like this. Really good move pool, to be honest. I think there's like a lot of potential with Exeggutor that's unexplored. I've tried to make it work. Never quite can, for whatever reason. It's just a slightly awkward Pokemon that's hard to make work, but it has a lot of great tools, including the Sunny Day Chlorophyll combo. Shiftry is also kind of fun as a Sunny Day Pokemon that also has Explosion. It's a bit faster than Exeggutor, base 80 speed, so that's fun. I had this meme team with both Shiftry and Exeggutor that I used once. Not very good, but funny for sure. So we'll put Chlorophyll in the solid tier. Sandstream, you definitely put in the amazing tier. Sandstream is Tyranitar's ability that creates permanent sandstorm on the field. It is perhaps the most central ability in all of Gen 3 OU. I'm putting it behind Drizzle and Drought. These are roughly ordered, by the way. Don't quote me on these orders. Chips everything on the field with Sandstorm damage that isn't Rock, Ground, or Steel type, which obviously helps out immensely against bulky, sand-weak Pokemon such as Blissey, Snorlax, Celebi, Suicune. It's one of the main forms of progress making. It cuts leftovers healing from so many things and benefits your Tyranitar itself. Without Sandstream, the metagame would be a lot slower and more stalematey and stall-driven, so Sandstorm defines the pace of Gen 3 in a way that I think is very healthy and good. It's one of the best ways to actually force progress and make things happen, is with Sandstorm. Sandveil is actually banned from Gen 3 OU. I don't know if it's banned from Ubers, but it's banned from Gen 3 OU because of the evasion clause. It provides evasion in Sandstorm. You folks weren't around for this, but Cacturne was once legal and it had base evasion. It would fish for subs and hope that you miss and then spam spikes against you and be a just absolute nuisance. That was hell on earth. You should all be glad that you don't have to experience such a thing, honestly. That was really something. Cacturne was a damn menace. So was Gligar with Sandveil. It's even worse in Gen 3 because sand is like the primary weather, so it's basically always up. So Cacturne just basically has base evasion. Ridiculous. Serene Grace, we're going to put in Excellent. That is the ability used by Jirachi. It's one of the main reasons Jirachi is so good, because in particular Body Slam with 60% paralysis chance. Serene Grace, if you don't know, doubles the chance of secondary effects happening on attacks. So Body Slam goes from having a 30% chance to paralyze to a 60% chance, which is massive. So Jirachi can use Body Slam as its main form of paralysis spreading and a physical attack at the same time. Plus it's able to paralyze ground types, which Thunder Wave can't do, so it has that advantage. Not only is that useful, but the 20% secondary effect chance on the elemental punches and thunderbolts, like a 20% chance to freeze. You can actually fish for freezes with Jirachi. Jirachi's Ice Punch freeze chance was a problem to the point where we had to introduce a freeze clause into the metagame, because Jirachi could just sit and fish for freezes forever. So now you can only freeze one enemy at a time in Gen 3 OU, which is for the best, believe me. Fire Punch burn chance is another thing. It's a bit like the Scald of Gen 3, obviously not as bad because fire types are immune and it's only 20%. But that's a powerful effect that can burn important switch-ins, like you can just burn a Swampert incoming, for example, or a Claydol trying to come in and threaten your Jirachi with Earthquake. You can just burn. Shadow Tag, I don't know if I should put this in ban-worthy because I can talk about it in Ubers where it's an excellent ability. I think I'll put it here because if we're talking about Ubers, we should talk about Shadow Tag. Wobbuffet has this ability and Wobbuffet's really good in Gen 3 Ubers. It's an extremely reliable trapper that can... Snorlax is actually one of the most common Pokemon in Gen 3 Ubers, and Wobbuffet can guaranteed trap Snorlax unless it gets like a crit multiple times, because it can just switch straight into Snorlax, trap it with the combo of like Counter and Destiny Bond and Encore. You have to run a Lumberry on Wobbuffet because if you have leftovers, then 2 Wobbuffets create an infinite battle. But with Lumberry, it can even have a safeguard against Body Slam paralysis. You can just come in and guaranteed eliminate their Snorlax, which is a common way to enable special offense teams in Gen 3 Ubers, because Snorlax is a very common special wall. A threat like Swift Swim Ludicolo or Omastar or specially biased Deoxys Attack can now become much more of a threat thanks to Wobbuffet. Really powerful Pokemon in Gen 3 Ubers. Shed Skin. Who gets Shed Skin in this? It's a good ability, but I don't know if anything relevant gets it. Pupitar, of course. I'm going to say not relevant for that. Shell Armor is on the Pokemon Cloyster, of course. That provides crit immunity. I think you put that in OK tier. Shell Armor is not the most relevant aspect of Cloyster, but immunity to crits is always nice, isn't it? Alongside a high defense stat. Cloyster is very bulky, but it's hard to use as a primarily defensive Pokemon in Gen 3 because of its weakness to rock and electric and a lot of common types, honestly. No chip heal in the sand. It's mostly an aggressive spiker, actually. It tries to spike up quickly and then explode. It's more of an aggressive Pokemon in that way. So Shell Armor is sometimes going to save it in situations where it otherwise would have been crit. More relevant than on like Camerupt, for example, who is just frail. Cloyster's Shell Armor is going to come up more often, but it's not hugely relevant to why you use Cloyster. Shield Dust on Venomoth and Dustox. Amazing ability, but not on a Pokemon that can really take advantage of it. Soundproof, you put in ban-worthy, I think. It was banned in Gen 3 OU because it's kind of funny. Roar is the primary form of counterplay against boost sweepers and substitute users, etc. And Soundproof makes you completely immune to Roar. And because Whirlwind and alternative options for removing boosts are not very common or reasonable to use on teams, Soundproof was overpowered. I made a whole video about this, about how Mr. Mime abused Soundproof to create near unbeatable strategies. In Gen 3 Ubers, I don't think Soundproof really comes up. I think it's legal, but then there's Baton Pass restrictions, and also it's just a higher power level, so Soundproof doesn't come up as much there. Speed Boost, I will put in Solid. It's on Ninjask, and Ninjask can pass speed to teammates with it. Provides 1 speed stage every turn. It's the whole reason Ninjask has any use. Ninjask is pretty bad at the moment because of all the Baton Pass restrictions. It used to be a menace. I'll put that in OK tier. There was a time that in Kalos Invitational, Mega Megan used a Ninjask pass team against someone, I forgot who, but won with it. Maybe the Pokemon still has some merit as worth exploring, despite all the restrictions on Baton Pass. Static does not come up very often in Gen 3. It's on largely irrelevant Pokemon to the metagame, so I'm going to put it on not relevant. Clear Body I will put in Great. Clear Body is an ability that Metagross has, and so does the Regis. Regirock in particular is the best at using this out of the 3 Regis, but Metagross loves being immune to Intimidate. A physical attacker immune to Intimidate is pretty nice in a metagame where Salamence is so common. Without Clear Body, it would be much worse at posing a threat to Salamence. Same with Regirock. The fact that Regirock can Rock Slide Salamence without Intimidate to worry about is really powerful. Sticky Hold is only on Muck, pretty much. It's also on Swalot. Knockoff is not that common in Gen 3, and even if it was, it's only on Muck, who is not really a common Pokemon, so I'm going to say not relevant. Suction Cups, I think I put in OK. Suction Cups is on Cradily and Octillery, who aren't very good, but there was a time when Octillery was actually an amazing Baton Pass recipient because it was immune to Raw and other... And in Whirlwind too, actually. It was immune to Whirlwind. Suction Cups means you can't be forced to switch by Raw or Whirlwind, making this a really good Baton Pass recipient that you couldn't Raw out. And Cradily can be like a... There's been teams with like Barrier that boost up and you can't Raw it out, and it's really annoying to beat. It also has Recover, Toxic. There's merit to this. I think it's enough to put it in the OK tier. Swarm, I will put in Great. Heracross can take advantage of Swarm on the Salackberry sets and sub down to the Swarm range, which is Swarm is the same as Blaze, Overgrow, and Torrent, but it boosts up bug type attacks when you're below 1/3 of your health. Really nice on Salackberry Heracross sets to clean up games and do massive damage with Megahorn, which is a really high power attack. Besides Swampert, I think Heracross is the best at using these pinch type of abilities. I think it's a big reason that Swampert can act as a late game cleaner and be so effective. Swift Swim, you put in Great, I think. Swift Swim is the whole reason that Pokemon like Kingdra and Ludicolo have their value. Even Gorebyss has been used by, I think, Ban Manaphy and Kalos Invitational used a Gorebyss. Swift Swim is obviously really good. Kingdra can be a really great late game cleaner on special offense teams. It's one of my favorite Pokemon to use on those teams, because sometimes you can have issues with speed on those teams. Like good Carmine Pokemon like Jirachi or special threats like Zapdos, they're fast, but they can get taken advantage of by like Aerodactyl and Jolteon, Gengar and other fast Pokemon like that. But Kingdra makes up for that with the Swift Swim, which if you eliminate Blissey, which is often the goal of special offense teams, then Kingdra can really go in, destroy everything, especially if you pass Carmines to it. Ludicolo is also nice because it has Leech Seed and a different typing that can be nicer on some teams. Sometimes you can run both Ludicolo and Kingdra for a double rain moment. Yeah, great ability. Synchronize, I'll put in Solid. Synchronize comes up sometimes. It's Alakazam's ability. It's Espeon's ability. Umbreon. Alakazam, one of the reasons you use this is because of Synchronize. If you Thunder Wave this, Thunder Waving is a common way to cripple really fast special attackers or fast threats in general. So at least if you Thunder Wave Alakazam, they Thunder Wave you back. That's a good way to trade with the enemy. Maybe disincentivize them from paralyzing you as well. On Umbreon, it's kind of nice to have Synchronize because you can switch into Gengar Will-O-Wisp. You have Pursuit, and if they Will-O-Wisp you, you Will-O-Wisp them, which is really good to Will-O-Wisp a Gengar. Force them to take damage over time. Often if you're running Umbreon, it's because you want to eliminate Gengar to enable teammates that want Gengar gone, like Rapid Spinners or fighting type threats. So Synchronize helps out a lot with that on Umbreon. Not a great Pokemon though, I mean, hard to build with. I've tried many times to make Umbreon work effectively. It's difficult. I do feel like this Pokemon has hidden potential, but I've been struggling with making that particular Pokemon work. But Synchronize is a solid ability. Thick Fat, I'm also going to put in the solid tier. It comes up sometimes. I mean, it's an option on Snorlax. You can sometimes use it instead of immunity if you're running Curse Rest sets, and it can help you out against Pokemon like Moltres, who deal big fire type damage, because sometimes a Moltres with like Flamethrower and Overheat can actually break through Snorlax if they take Spikes and Sand Chip and stuff. Moltres can be a powerful breaker, but Thick Fat helps, and sometimes you don't need the Toxic immunity if you have Rest anyway. And sometimes the fire type resistance is more valuable. Ice type resistance doesn't come up as much. Maybe you can take less from a Gengar Ice Punch that can save your life. Not going to be that common. The other Pokemon that can use Thick Fat is Hariyama, which can be an option instead of Guts. Guts is the more common option in Hariyama, but Thick Fat helps not only against like Moltres, but against Tyranitar actually. Hariyama can be a really great switch into Tyranitar, not only because of rock resistance, but if you have Thick Fat, you're even solid against the mixed sets that use Fire Blast. Fire Blast is a high power move, it does a lot of damage. Resisting Fire Blast is valuable. And if you're using Thick Fat on Hariyama, you probably want to use a bulkier oriented set like something like this, with Rest and Whirlwind and Knockoff. More defensive take on Hariyama with Thick Fat can be very powerful. And the Ice Beam resistance does come up too against Gengar, so that's nice. Thick Fat solid. Trace, I would put in, I don't think you can quite put it in excellent, because even though it is the whole reason that Porygon 2 has its niche, Porygon 2 is not the most relevant Pokemon in the world. But Trace has its important purpose. It can counter-trap Dugtrio by tracing Arena Trap, which can enable Dugtrio weak teammates like Jirachi, Tyranitar, Metagross, and then even some off-meta picks like Raikou or Blaziken. Trace also has additional utility because it can trace abilities like Volt Absorb, allowing you to switch in safely against Jolteon. They can't hit you with their big electric stab. You can trace Levitate, become immune to a Claydol Earthquake or a Flygon Earthquake. You can trace Natural Cure from Blissey, heal your status with it. Trace is one of my favorite ability designs ever, and I'm a big Porygon 2 fan for sure. I love what Trace adds to this metagame. A lot of cool interactions and archetype defining utility. So we'll put Trace in the great tier. We have Cloud9. I'm going to put Cloud9 in the okay tier. Cloud9 is the same as Airlock, but Golduck gets it. And this is the whole reason you would ever use Golduck. It's a terrible Pokemon stats-wise, but Cloud9 is actually a pretty amazing ability for Gen 3 because Sandstream is so common. So one of the few non-rock ground steel types who is immune to Sandstorm, which is pretty great. Unfortunately, the Pokemon itself is not that great, but I have experimented with Golduck. I think it's epic. You can use like Salackberry and you don't have to worry about Sandchip defeating you, so you can do like Endure Salackberry Golduck and be a bit of a special threat. Golduck also has mixed coverage, so it can be like a special attacker with mixed coverage. A Lumberry and not worry about Sandchip or something like that. I want to say like Dexa used this on a team, or someone good used this on a team once, I can recall. Not a Pokemon that can fit on many teams. Cloud9, if like something better got Cloud9, it would be super relevant. The fact that only Golduck gets it, you can't put it that high. This could even, if it was on the right Pokemon, it could be up here. I mean, Airlock on Rayquaza is much more relevant. Cloud9 we'll put in the okay tier. Volt Absorb, I think you put in excellent. I mean, Jolteon has fallen off in its usage a bit, but Volt Absorb is the whole reason it's good, and the ability to just come in against a Zapdos Thunderbolt or even a Starmie or Gengar Thunderbolt is just really, really valuable. I think a Jolteon's still good. I'm a Jolteon supporter, and I'm going to put Volt Absorb in the excellent tier. I think it's an excellent ability deserving of such a title. Water Absorb, I will put in, I almost want to put it in great. I'm going to put it in solid for now, though, because the thing about Water Absorb, amazing ability. Water immunity. Amount of relevant Pokemon that get it are limited. It's only on UUBL Pokemon and below. You do sometimes see the occasional bulky Vaporeon that takes advantage of Water Absorb to defeat Suicune 1v1. Same with Mantine. You occasionally see Mantine, not very often. Watermess has experimented with Mantine. I'm a big Mantine fan, to be honest. Epic Pokemon, but you don't see it that often. It allows you to defeat Suicune 1v1 and has other utility like helping against Swampert. Not so much Starmie because they carry electric move anyway, so you just get one hit by them. Still, top of solid for water absorb. Water Veil, isn't that burn immunity? And it's only on Wailord. I'm so sorry to the fans at home, but we're going to put Water Veil in the not irrelevant tier, because only a special attacker gets access to it. I suppose Wailord does have self-destruct, so I guess you can't burn it and then nerf its self-destruct damage, which is kind of funny. Anything that wants to burn this is going to switch out of it. I've never seen this interaction ever be relevant once in my life. Wailord has a Gen 3 niche because it's Water Spout plus self-destruct, which can lure in and eliminate Blissey, which is fun. But I don't know if Water Veil ever comes up ever. I don't think it ever does. White Smoke, isn't that's Torkoal? And it's another one that provides stat drop immunity. I can't imagine this ever being very relevant. Do you have Explosion? You do? I'm going to say not relevant for this because it's on Torkoal. Wonder Guard, if we were just evaluating these abilities on their own merits, you'd put it up here, but you have to take into consideration the Pokemon that has access to the ability. And Shedinja is really, really terrible in Gen 3 OU because Sandstream just one-hits it. Wonder Guard, though, on its own is like the best ability in the entire franchise, but it's on a Pokemon that stinks in Gen 3. I did make my Shedinja video about Super Epicanthropus bringing absolutely once-in-a-lifetime game that I still can't believe happened. In Gen 3 Ubers, you do sometimes see Shedinja, but the problem with Shedinja in Gen 3 Ubers is that Pursuit is really common. Pursuit in Gen 3 Ubers is a way to eliminate Deoxys Attack, because Deoxys Attack is a really powerful central offensive Pokemon, but it has like 0 defense. That's the gimmick of Deoxys Attack, is that it has like massive attack and speed and special attack, but look at its special defense. So literally you run Pursuit on like Skarmory or someone with no special attack, it still one-hits Deoxys Attack on the way out. It's common on Metagross in particular, Pursuit, and this just eliminates Shedinja. So people are already running Pursuit to handle Deoxys Attack, and then they also handle Shedinja at the same time. So even in Gen 3 Ubers, Shedinja has an uphill battle of having to contend with all the Pursuit users. Color Change is the ability of Kecleon. Maybe you put Color Change in the OK tier. I'm going to talk for a moment about Gen 3 1v1. In Gen 3 1v1, this comes up because you can send out Kecleon, and if like they hit you with a stab attack, like an electric or water type attack, often Pokemon resist their own types. So you get hit with an electric move, you become electric type, and now you resist electric, which allows you to win in a 1v1. In singles, that doesn't really come up that often, but in Gen 3 1v1, Kecleon has a niche for that reason. I guess this is the one time I'm gonna rug something based on its niche in Gen 3 1v1. I don't know much about the format, but I do know that Kecleon can thrive in that format. Maybe thrive is the wrong word, but it can function in that format. This is a fake rating almost. It's the only rating that factors in 1v1 metagame. Forgive me for that. Compound Eyes, I will put in OK. Compound Eyes is the ability of Butterfree, and it allows it to have an accurate Sleep Powder and Stun Spore. This is the main thing Butterfree has going for it. Butterfree surprised me in ADU Revival. H-Clad brought it, and so did Butterfree Fan 55, whoever it was. Butterfree Enthusiast, Butterfree Fan 3000. There was some Butterfree fan who kept talking about Butterfree and they ended up bringing it. It has this combination plus Rain Dance. It also has Thief. This is what H-Clat used. Sleep Powder, Stun Spore, Thief. And then an unknown final attack that only God knows. Its stats are non-existent, but it has utility. And the thing is that Breloom also has, it has Spore and Stun Spore, but Breloom's Stun Spore is inaccurate. I hate using Stun Spore on Breloom, it's only 75, but on Butterfree, it has the combination of Sleep and Para, but it's actually accurate on both of them, which is quite nice. And it has like Spike Immunity, Ground Immunity. I was surprised. This is honestly not completely terrible. This is a decent niche. You could use this on offensive teams and probably do alright with it. I don't know. I'm going to experiment with this next time I hit the ladder, to be honest, because this is something that really surprised me. In fact, out of respect, we're going to put Compound Eyes in the solid tier for all the Butterfree fans in the audience. Thanks for watching this, folks. It was a bit off the cuff, a bit informal. I'm kind of just ranking them as I go. I hope you didn't mind me taking into account the context of like what Pokemon even have these abilities and how relevant those abilities are in that Pokemon's viability. I feel like that's the best way to evaluate these. Evaluating them in a vacuum isn't really useful because then like Wonder Guard would be number one, but in practice Wonder Guard, it doesn't really do much. So I thought I'd do it like this. It made more sense to me. What do you think of my rankings? Are there any abilities that I'm lacking respect for here? What's your favorite ability on the list? Mine would have to be Trace. That's my favorite. But what's yours? And if you want to make your own, I'll link it in the description. Thank you. This video was the winner of a poll over on Patreon. Become a patron to submit topics for these polls and vote for yourself. Thank you to all the patrons for your continued support, and thank you to everyone who has donated to my Gen 3 OU tournament, ADV Revival.